Queensland Liberal National Party has copped a spanking after it proposed scrapping compulsory voting for Queensland state elections.
So Campbell Newman's government has released a discussion paper on electoral reform, and within it is a section that canvasses the idea of scrapping compulsory voting.
Historical context!
That's despite the fact that compulsory voting is nearing its 100-year anniversary in Queensland, having been established in 1915. And in fact, Queensland was the first state to do so. The PM immediately lashed out, tweeting, "Fight the Queensland Premier's plan to end compulsory voting. Don't let the Liberals make our democracy the plaything of cashed-up interest groups." Surprisingly, LNP Senator Barnaby Joyce agrees, admitting scrapping compulsory voting would lead to more extreme politics in a bid to get Australians motivated to vote.
What I like about an Australian democracy is that when you vote, you have to make sure you don't startle the troops. If you startle the troops, you will not get voted in. In America, you have to startle them quite a bit to get them out to vote.
Even former LNP Life member Clive Palmer, seen here driving a golf cart to hilarious effect, took a swipe at Newman, releasing a statement that said the proposal highlights how the Queensland government is panicking about its loss of support. That lack of support, according to Wayne Swan, has come about due to the 14,000 public service jobs Campbell Newman has slashed since coming to office.
This is a Bjelke-Petersen-style era proposal from the Newman government to try to escape the judgment of the people.
Regardless of where you stand, the good news is you can also let Campbell Newman know what you think of the proposal, as public consultation on the paper is open until March 1st. To do that, you can email your thoughts to electoralreform@justice.queensland.gov.au. That's electoralreform@justice.queensland.gov.au. Democracy, still alive and well. For now. Now, according to his website, Chris Berg is a research fellow with the Institute of Public Affairs and a columnist for Fairfax and the ABC. No one checked it, so I guess we'll just have to take his word for it. Chris, everyone seems to have an opinion on this idea that we should scrap compulsory voting. You like the idea, yeah?
Yeah, I think that we should scrap compulsory voting and move to a voluntary system. Compulsory voting has some incredibly damaging consequences to our democracy. It is the reason that we are complaining about a bad public debate, a disengaged public, and politicians that take our votes for granted. The reason that they're able to do that is because we have to go and vote for them. If they had to grab our attention, if they had to bring us to the polls, then perhaps we might have a more energetic, more robust and more democratic debate.
Chris, I mainly go to vote for the sausage sizzle, but isn't it true that if everyone has to vote, then that means that the politicians that are elected are representing everyone?
Well, that's not necessarily the case. You look at all the many, many voluntary voting systems around the world, and I defy you to see any difference about the cast of representatives in their parliaments and congresses. That argument doesn't quite hold when you look at all the other voluntary countries around the world. There are only 5% of nations around the globe that do have compulsory voting. Most other countries are voluntary and they are no less democratic for it.
Bergie, are you surprised from the backlash, even within the LNP?
I'm not surprised at all. This is very, very common in Australia. Because we've had compulsory voting for so long, it seems almost kooky that you would challenge it, that you would talk about a voluntary voting system. So there's always going to be a huge amount of pushback. But the real thing to remember is that it is incredibly rare around the world to have the system we have.
Chris, this is being put forward by Campbell Newman, though, and maybe I've read about too many dictators in history class, but shouldn't we be highly suspicious of anyone who comes to power and then tries to change the system of election that puts people in power?
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. I agree completely that you should be incredibly suspicious when someone tries to change the rules of the game. But that doesn't mean that voluntary voting is a bad idea. Eventually, the rules have to be changed.
What about my sneaky sub-suggestion that Campbell Newman is a dictator?
Yeah, I let that go, Charlie.
Chris, thanks for speaking to us. I'm sure we'll have this debate again soon.
My pleasure, thanks.